They demolished my yacht for unauthorized docking, docked my yacht at Sunrise Harbor just before sunset. It wasn't flashy by Marina standards, clean lines, polished wood, quietly expensive. I'd owned it for years and I'd docked there dozens of times before. The next morning I woke up to sirens. By the time I reached the marina, my yacht was already half destroyed. A demolition crew stood there, clipboard in hand, while an HOA board member in a blazer loudly explained, this vessel was illegally docked. We issued notices. Notices I never received, not that it mattered. Because the dock, the slips, the entire marina, they were mine. The sun hung low over Sunrise Harbor, painting the sky in strokes of fiery orange and deep purple, as if the ocean itself was holding its breath. This wasn't just any waterfront enclave. It was a glittering jewel on the Florida coast, where multi-million-dollar mansions lined manicured streets, infinity pools overlooked white-sand beaches, and yacht clubs whispered promises of endless summer. But beneath the postcard perfection lurked the iron fist of the Sunrise Bay Homeowners Association, HOA, a cadre of self-appointed enforcers who patrolled the community like mall cops with Napoleonic complexes. For years, they'd started small. A fisherman named Manny Rodriguez, who'd cast lines from the public access point since before the condos rose from the dunes, got his first violation notice in 2021. Unauthorized vehicle parking, it read, slapped on his battered pickup's windshield after he'd left it overnight near the marina lot. Manny, a third-generation local with calloused hands and salt-crusted boots, laughed it off at first. But when the fines piled up, $250 here, $500 there, he found himself shelling out more for paperwork than for bait. The HOA president, Corinne Whitaker, a retired real estate agent with a pearl necklace and a vendetta against anything unrefined, led the charge. This is a luxury community, she'd declare at monthly meetings, her voice slicing through the community center like a Bowie knife. Fishermen belong at the public ramps, not cluttering our views. Escalated from there. Boat owners bore the brunt next. Tom Hargrove, a software engineer who'd sunk his life savings into a sleek 32-foot Sea Ray, got dinged for noise violations. His engines hum at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, a $1,200 fine, retroactive for disturbing the peace. Never mind that the marina's public waters amplified every ripple. The HOA bylaws, stretched thinner than a cheap dock line, vaguely referenced excessive maritime activity. Corinne and her board, mostly empty nesters with too much time and Botox, interpreted it broadly. Jet skis were the final straw. In 2024, a group of college kids renting a vacation home launched their Yamahas for a dawn cruise. The HOA called the county sheriff, then escalated. A certified letter to the U.S. Coast Guard station in Miami, claiming the personal watercraft endangered residents and wildlife. The Guard's response: a polite email, Federal Navigable Waters. No jurisdiction. Real-world echoes of this madness abound. In Half Moon Bay, New York, a dockominium marina sparked lawsuits when residential HOA members outvoted boat slip owners, hiking fees and blocking pool access as retaliation for challenging board authority. Florida's own battles rage on Reddit's R-Fuck HOA, where boat park driveways trigger $150K fines exaggerated, but liens are real, and HOAs threaten Coast Guard-style interventions over wakeboard boats. One viral YouTube tale, likely rage bait but rooted in truth, mirrors this. An HOA finds a therapy boat for an autistic kid, ignoring fair housing pleas. Another, cops called on a houseboat in a private lake, only for the owner to reveal they bought the marina outright. But what the HOA didn't know, what no one in Sunrise Harbor knew, was my secret. 5 years ago, in 2021, the Sunrise Marina was a sinking ship. Decades of hurricanes had battered its docks, COVID idled slips, debt mounted to $4.2 million. The bank auctioned it quietly through a shell LLC I controlled, Harbor Holdings, LLC, registered in Delaware, no press releases, no flags. I'd cashed out big from tech stocks during the boom, spotting the opportunity via a tip from a fishing buddy in county records. Cost me $2.8 million, peanuts for 12 acres of prime waterfront, 200 slips, fuel pumps, and repair bays. Legally, the marina was private property, deeded separate from the HOA's sidewalks, pools, and wrought iron gates. Their covenants stopped at the high tide line. Navigable waters, Coast Guard turf. Docks, mine. I stayed silent. No under new management banners. No meet and greets. I paid the skeleton crew from afar, fixed the pilings with union labor flown in from Baltimore, and watched property values soar. HOA residents unwittingly boosted by my invisible investments. Manny got a quiet slip discount, Tom a free haul out, but I never advertised it. Why? Revenge brews slow like conch chowder. Fast forward to January 2026. The HOA's boldness peaked. Karen, clipboard in hand, rallied at the annual meeting. The marina's an eyesore, overcrowded slips, noisy jet skis, fishermen parking like it's a third-world bazaar. They'd already fined 17 boaters that year, netting $28K in compliance fees. Manny's truck, towed twice. Tom C. Ray, impound threatened. The jet ski letter to the Coast Guard. Followed by plans for private security patrols on my docks. The breaking point, demolition. Surveyors and vests marked HOA beautification project, ripping out non-compliant ramps and a storage shed on the marina's edge, land I deeded explicitly outside their plat, permits, forged with a bogus easement claim. Cost to me, $15K in splintered teak and rebar, but legally trespass. Vandalism, their authority. 0 county deeds confirm it, cross-referenced in public records since 21. I watch from my anonymous trawler moored offshore, binoculars catching Karen's triumphant selfie amid the rubble. Fishermen grumbled at the tackle shop, boaters whispered of lawsuits. Manny spat tobacco. These rich folk think they own the goddamn ocean. That night, under a canopy of stars, I fired off the email. From Harbor Holdings attorney, a shark from Miami named Elena Vasquez who'd crushed condos in Palm Beach. CC'd. Every HOA board member, the sheriff, Coast Guard auxiliary, and county commissioner. Cease all activities on Sunrise Marina property, parcel ID 12456-789. Owned 100% by Harbor Holdings, LLC since 2021 auction. No easements granted. Demolition constitutes criminal trespass FL Stat. 810.08. Property damage, 810.02. Invoices attached, $27,450 for repairs, $10K punitive. Retract all fines issued post 2021 Ray. Marina access, $14,200 total. Failure. Suit for triple damages, injunction, board removal. Panic rippled by dawn. Karen's Facebook rants turned to pleas. Who owns the marina? This is our community. Manny got his fines refunded with interest. Tom launched his Sea Ray without a peep. Jet skis buzzed freely, Coast Guard laughed it off. But I wasn't done. At the emergency HOA meeting, I slipped in anonymously, cap pulled low, posing as a concerned resident. As Karen blustered about rights, I stood. Ma'am, the marina's private, like your pool. Touch it again and it's liens on your McMansion. Gasps. She paled. Who are you? Harbor Holdings. The room erupted. Fishermen cheered. Boaters high-fived. Karen resigned by Tuesday, sued by 5 residents for overreach. The board dissolved half its rules, hired real lawyers. Property values spiked 18%. My marina upgrades drew yacht brokers from Miami. Sunrise Harbor learned, water doesn't bow to sidewalks, and quiet owners rule the tide. The morning sun glinted off the calm waters of Sunrise Harbor like scattered diamonds, but the air crackled with tension thicker than the humidity rolling in from the Gulf. It was mid-February 2026, just weeks after the demolition fiasco, and the marina buzzed with activity. Fishermen hauling coolers, boat owners polishing hulls, the distant hum of engines testing for weekend runs. I decided it was time to stop lurking in the shadows. Harbor Holdings, LLC, quiet empire, was ready to surface. Karen Whittaker, the HOA president, stood on the main dock like she owned it. Oversized designer sunglasses perched on her perfectly highlighted hair, a smug smile curling her lips as she surveyed her domain. Clipboard in hand, flanked by two board members, retired busybodies named Harold and Evelyn, she was mid-lecture to a cluster of boat owners who'd gathered after receiving fresh violation notices. Unauthorized docking, the letters claimed, citing some twisted interpretation of bylaws that supposedly extended to the Marina slips. I approached from the harbor office, a weathered but sturdy building I'd renovated quietly over the years, complete with my name on the lease as harbor master. Casual jeans, a faded fishing shirt, cap pulled low, no one recognized me yet as the phantom owner. "You authorized this?" I asked, holding up one of the crumpled violation notices, my voice calm but pointed directly at Karen. She turned, sizing me up like an unwelcome tourist. Her nod was sharp, confident. "Absolutely. Our bylaws prohibit unauthorized docking and excessive maritime clutter. It's for the aesthetic and safety of the entire community." The board members murmured agreement, Harold adjusting his golf visor. I glanced at the crowd. Manny Rodriguez nursing a coffee, Tom Hargrove arms crossed, a dozen others shifting uncomfortably. They'd been hit with fines totaling thousands since the new year, all bogus claims of noise or visual obstruction from boats legally moored in my slips. "You can file a complaint with the board," Karen added, her tone dripping with condescension, as if dismissing a child. "We'll review it at the next meeting. In the meantime, these vessels need to be removed or screened properly." The group grumbled. One younger boater muttered, "This is bullshit, they don't own the damn water." I pointed toward the harbor office, its sign reading Sunrise Marina private property in fresh paint I'd added just days ago. "That building," I said, voice steady, "that's my office." Karen laughed, a sharp, dismissive bark that echoed off the docks. Harold chuckled along, Evelyn smirking behind her. "Your office? Honey, this marina falls under community oversight. We've been enforcing standards here for years. If you're the new tenant or something, you should know better." The crowd went quiet, sensing the shift. I reached into my messenger bag, prepared for this moment, and pulled out the folder, thick, official, stamped. Then I handed her the Marina deed. The 2021 auction purchase, parcel ID clear, title in Harbor Holdings, LLC, with my name as sole member. Next, the dock permits from the County and Army Corps of Engineers, renewed annually under my signature. Finally, the harbor master contract, me, appointed by myself, granting full operational control. All with my name on them, Alexander Thorne. Her manicured fingers flipped through the pages, sunglasses slipping down her nose. The smug smile vanished, replaced by a pallor that matched the whitecaps in a storm. Harold leaned in, squinting. This can't be right." "It is," I said. "Every slip, every piling, every inch of this marina is private property. Your HOA covenants end at the bulkhead. Check the plat maps from 1998. You've been trespassing, issuing fake fines, and vandalizing my assets for years." Gasps rippled through the boat owners. Manny whooped. Tom grinned wide. Karen stammered, "But we've always, the community relies on." "Relies on what? Overreach?" I turned to the crowd. "All fines issued since 2021, void, refunds with interest incoming, demolition damages, billed to the HOA $27K and counting." Evelyn whispered urgently, but Karen clutched the documents like they burned. The board members backed away as whispers turned to cheers. Phones came out, videos rolling for local Facebook groups already ablaze with HOA horror stories. Real-life parallels flooded my mind. That New York docominium war at Half Moon Bay, where residential HOA members bullied marina slip owners until lawsuits flew. Florida Reddit threads full of boaters fined for driveway parking or lake access, selective enforcement letting board favorites slide. One viral tale, a guy secretly buying the lake his HOA fished in, then banning them. This was my version. By evening, the emergency HOA meeting was chaos. Corinne's resignation letter hit inboxes at midnight. The board scrambled for lawyers, facing potential personal liability under Florida Statute 720.303, fines for willful misconduct. Residents who'd paid bogus fees demanded rebates. Boaters partied at the tackle shop. I stood on my dock, my office light glowing as the sun set. File a complaint. I'd echoed her words in a follow-up email to the board. Feel free, but address it to the owner. Sunrise Harbor's tide had turned. The water was mine, and finally everyone knew it. January 5, 2026. The air smelled of sawdust, diesel, and salt. The unmistakable perfume of destruction interrupted. The demolition crew, 6 men in hard hats and neon vests hired by the HOA's beautification committee, had chainsaws whining and hydraulic shears biting into the wooden ramp and storage shed at the Marina's southern edge. Splinters flew like confetti. They'd started at dawn, armed with a stack of permits Corinne Whittaker swore were legitimate. Some vague community easement claim stamped by a county clerk who'd clearly been rushed or misled. I watched from the harbor office porch, arms crossed, phone recording. The crew chief barked orders, a backhoe idled ready to scoop the debris. Then my attorney, Elena Vasquez, arrived in her black Mercedes, heels clicking on the dock planks like Judgment Day approaching. She carried the same thick folder I'd handed Corinne days earlier. Deeds, surveys, title history, Army Corps approvals, county records dating back to the 2021 auction. The crew chief noticed the newcomer first. He killed the chainsaw mid-cut, the sudden silence louder than the noise. "Ma'am, we're on HOA authorized work here." Elena didn't smile. She handed him a cease and desist letter, carbon copy to the sheriff's department. "Not anymore. This is private property. Cease operations immediately or face criminal trespass charges under Florida Statute 810.08. The men froze. One lowered his shears slowly, like a kid caught with stolen candy. The backhoe operator killed the engine. They looked to their foreman, who looked to the HOA's attorney, Mark Donnelly, a silver-haired litigator from Boca Raton who'd built a career defending condo boards and HOAs. He just pulled up in his leased Lexus, briefcase in hand, ready to oversee the cleanup and issue statements to the local paper about preserving community standards. Donnelly strode over, confident, nodding at Corinne, who hovered nearby with her clipboard like a battle flag. "What's the holdup?" he asked. "Permits are in order." Elena stepped forward, calm as a flat sea. "Read these." She thrust the folder into his hands. Donnelly flipped pages with practice speed: deed transfers, LLC filings, parcel maps showing the Marina boundaries clear as day. No overlap with HOA common areas. No easements granted post 1998 plat recording. The shoreline. Deeded upland, not state sovereign submerged lands. Florida's navigable waters doctrine stops at the mean high water line. Everything dry above it was mine. The ramp they'd half demolished. Built on my land, permitted in my name. His face drained of color, page by page. The smug courtroom tilt vanished. He reached the auction record from 5 years back, quiet, no fanfare, $2.8 million cash through Harbor Holdings. My name, Alexander Thorne, listed as managing member. "You own the Marina?" Donnelly asked, voice cracking on the last word. "Every slip," I replied, stepping closer so the crew could hear. "Every dock, every inch of shoreline you're standing on." I gestured broadly. The splintered ramp, the shed reduced to matchsticks, the backhoe parked squarely on my asphalt apron, the crew's trucks blocking my fuel dock access. Including the land their equipment was parked on. Including the dock they just destroyed. Corinne's pearl necklace bobbed as she swallowed. "But we thought." "You thought wrong," Elena cut in. "Your bylaws cover sidewalks, pools, and gated entries. Not private commercial waterfront deeded separately since before your community even existed. You've trespassed, damaged property valued at over $27,000 so far, issued fraudulent fines under color of non-existent authority, and wasted HOA funds on this stunt. The crew chief shifted uncomfortably. "Boss, we stopping?" Donnelly closed the folder slowly. "Yes, pack it up, now." He turned to me, professional mask slipping back on but thinner now. "Mr. Thorne, this appears to be a misunderstanding. The association will, of course, compensate for any damage and retract the violations." I let the silence stretch. Manny Rodriguez leaned against a piling, grinning. Tom Hargrove filmed on his phone, already viral potential for our fuck HOA. Real stories echoed in my head. Condominium wars in New York where residential boards bullied slip owners over pool access. Florida Reddit threads of boaters fined thousands for driveway parking while board favorites got passes. Cases where HOAs tried self-help remedies like towing or cutting locks, only to face trespass suits when owners pushed back. One viral YouTube tale mirrored this almost exactly. An owner quietly buying the lake his HOA fished, then banning them outright. "No misunderstanding," I said. "Willful overreach. You've billed residents for Marina compliance fees you had no right to collect. Demolished structures on land you never owned. Florida courts don't look kindly on that. See the precedents on selective enforcement and ultra-vires board actions." Donnelly glanced at Karen, who looked ready to faint. "We'll need to discuss with the board." "Discuss fast," Alina said. "Sheriff's deputy is en route for the incident report. Trespass complaints already filed. And the county attorney's reviewing your permits. Forgery's a felony if they turn out fake." The crew began loading tools, engines coughing to life as trucks reversed off my property. Donnelly lingered a moment. "This could be resolved amicably. A settlement." "Send your offer to Alina," I said. "In writing, with full accounting of every fine collected since 2021. Refunds start tomorrow." He nodded once, defeated, and walked away. Karen stared at the wreckage like it was her own life in pieces. By noon, the site was cleared, except for the debris pile I'd have to haul myself. But the message landed hard. The HOA that thought it ruled the water learned it didn't even rule the dirt under its feet. That afternoon, emails flooded inboxes. Emergency board meeting called. Resignations whispered. Residents who'd paid bogus fines demanded answers. The tide had turned, literally and figuratively. And I walked the docks, my docks watching boats bob peacefully. The realization had hit them hard. It felt like justice on the water. January 5, 2026, mid-afternoon. The demolition debris still smoldered in piles along the bulkhead, fresh tire tracks from the HOA's backhoe scarring my asphalt. The crew had packed up under Alina's glare, but the damage was done. Half a ramp gone, a storage shed reduced to kindling, and the HOA's arrogance hanging in the air like exhaust fumes. I stood on the harbor office balcony, phone in hand, and made one call. "Sheriff's non-emergency dispatch. This is Alexander Thorne, owner of Sunrise Marina. I have an active trespass in progress on my private property. HOA hired demolition crew just left, but their equipment is still parked on my land without permission. I'm formally requesting removal and impoundment under trespass statutes. Deputy already has the incident report from earlier." The dispatcher was professional calm. "We'll have a unit there in 20. Stand by." While I waited, Alina dialed next. The HOA's registered agent and insurance carrier. She read from the script we'd prepared days earlier. Cease and desist delivered via certified email and overnight courier. Any further entry onto parcel 12456789 constitutes continuing trespass. Demand immediate retraction of all marina-related fines since 2021, full reimbursement plus statutory interest, and compensation for property damage exceeding $27,450. Notice of intent to file civil suit for trespass, conversion, and punitive damages. Insurance carrier copied. Claim in excess of policy limits anticipated. Then came the insurance notification itself. Alina's paralegal had already drafted the tender letter. 7-figure exposure, actual damages, lost slip revenue during repairs, attorney fees, and punitive multiplier for willful misconduct. Florida insurers hate surprise exposure on HOA boards. They start sweating the moment personal liability appears in the subject line. Within the hour, 2 sheriff's cruisers rolled up. The deputies, familiar with HOA overreach complaints from other waterfront communities, photographed the tire marks, the debris, the abandoned caution tape still fluttering. They issued trespass warnings to the crew foreman, who'd foolishly returned for a forgotten toolbox, and placed orange IMPOUNDED. Do not move boots on the backhoe, the dump truck, and the flatbed trailer. The equipment would sit in the county lot until the HOA posted bond or settled. The cease and desist hit every board member's inbox simultaneously. Corinne Whitaker's red receipt popped up at 2:47 p.m. She didn't reply. The insurance carrier's claims adjuster called Alina back within 30 minutes. We're opening file number HOA 2026017. Please forward police report and damage photos. Then I did something better, something permanent. I walked into the harbor office, logged into the Marina management system I'd quietly upgraded years ago, and opened the access control dashboard. Sunrise Bay HOA had enjoyed a sweetheart deal since the early 2000s, a community access agreement grandfathered in when the Marina was still bank-owned. It granted their residents priority booking on 10 transient slips, discounted fuel at the pumps, guest docking privileges for visitors, and 24/7 emergency haul-out services in storm season. The agreement had never been renegotiated after the 2021 sale. Legally, it was month-to-month terminable with 30 days notice. I didn't give 30 days. I typed the termination notice, effective immediately. Pursuant to Section 8.2 of the Access Agreement dated March 15, 2002, Harbor Holdings, LLC hereby terminates the agreement for material breach, including but not limited to unauthorized entry, property damage, and issuance of unlawful fines. Access privileges revoked effective 3:00 p.m. today. All key cards deactivated. Fuel pumps locked to non-resident rates. Transient slips reallocated to waitlist. I hit send. The system executed. RFID readers buzzed, key fobs went dead, gate codes expired. The fuel attendant got the memo via walkie-talkie. No more HOA discounts, cash or card at posted rate. Within minutes, the fallout began. First came the confused texts from residents to the HOA board chat. Screenshots later leaked to the local Facebook group. Why is my key card not working at the fuel dock? Gate says access denied, contact Marina owner. I just got denied a guest slip for my brother's boat. What the hell? Then the panic calls flooded the HOA office line. Corinne's voicemail filled in under 10 minutes. Board members scrambled to an emergency Zoom, audio only, because half were too shaken to show their faces. I watched it unfold from the office window. A line formed at the fuel pumps. Residents who'd always paid the sweetheart $3.89 gallon HOA rate now starring at $5.49 posted for outsiders. One woman in a golf cart tried her fob on the gate. Beep, red light, nothing. She burst into tears. Manny Rodriguez strolled by, chuckling. Guess the water ain't free no more, huh? Tom Hargrove pulled up in his Sea Ray, idling past the now-locked HOA dock. He gave a mock salute toward the office. I waved back. By 4:30 p.m., the county commissioner's office had fielded 17 calls from Sunrise Bay homeowners. The local paper's tip line lit up with HOA loses Marina access, owner strikes back. Reddit's R-Fuck HOA was already posting grainy cell phone videos of the impounded backhoe, captioned, "When you mess with the wrong quiet owner." Real-world echoes rang loud. Florida HOA boards that overreached on lake or canal access often faced exactly this: revoked easements, locked docks, skyrocketing fuel bills. One infamous case in the Keys saw a marina owner terminate a similar community agreement after repeated trespass complaints. Property values dipped 12% in 6 months as buyers fled the drama. Another in Tampa Bay ended with the HOA buying the access rights back at triple the original price, just to restore peace. Here, no buyback offer was coming. I drafted one last email to the board, CCing every resident on the public marina mailing list I'd quietly compiled over the years. Sunrise Bay HOA Board. Effective immediately, all access privileges under the terminated agreement are revoked. Residents may reapply for slips, fuel, and services at standard commercial rates. No discounts, no priority. Existing reservations honored through January 31 only. Any attempt to enter restricted areas will be treated as trespass. Security cameras active. Sheriff on speed dial. This ends years of unauthorized control over private property. Regards, Alexander Thorne. Harbor Holdings, LLC. I hit send at 5:02 p.m. The tables hadn't just turned. They'd been flipped, splintered, and tossed into the tide. From the balcony, I watched the sun dip behind the mansions, casting long shadows across empty HOA docks. Boats rocked gently in their slips, my slips, while the community that once thought it ruled the water learned what it felt like to be locked out. Justice delivered on the waterline. January 5, 2026, 8:00 p.m. The Sunrise Bay Community Center glowed under harsh fluorescent lights, the kind that make everyone look guilty. Folding chairs scraped across tile as residents filed in, faces a mix of confusion, anger, and barely contained panic. Word of the impounded equipment, revoked access, and my termination notice had spread like wildfire through group chats and next-door threads. The emergency meeting, called via frantic email blast at 6:15 p.m., promised urgent discussion of marina access issues. I arrived early, cap low, hoodie up, blending into the back row like any other concerned resident. No one recognized me yet. The room filled to capacity, retirees clutching phones, younger families whispering about skyrocketing fuel costs, boat owners who'd suddenly lost priority slips. Manny Rodriguez sat front and center, arms crossed, smirking. Tom Hargrove leaned against the wall, filming discreetly. Karen Whittaker took the podium at 8:05, flanked by the remaining board members, Harold looking pale, Evelyn fidgeting with her pearls. The HOA attorney, Mark Donnelly, hovered nearby, briefcase open, tie loosened like he'd already lost the fight. Karen cleared her throat. Thank you for coming on short notice. As you know, there's been a misunderstanding with the marina owner. We've lost access to slips, fuel, and services that our community has enjoyed for decades. This is unacceptable. We're here to find a compromise. Murmurs rippled. Someone yelled, compromise, they towed our backhoe. Karen raised a hand. We've reached out to the owner, Mr. Thorne, and proposed reasonable terms. Restored access, perhaps discounted rates, mutual non-disparagement. We're willing to work together for the good of Sunrise Bay. Heads turned. No one had seen me yet. I stood slowly. The room quieted as I walked forward, pulling off the cap. Gasps. Karen's eyes widened, recognition hitting like a rogue wave. Compromise, I said, voice carrying without a mic. Let's talk terms. I laid it out, calm and deliberate. Full replacement of my yacht. The one I'd kept moored offshore as my personal base. Nothing extravagant, but a 42-foot cruiser now bearing fresh gouges from the HOA's security patrol boat that had accidentally bumped it during their jet ski crackdown. Public apology. Posted on the community website, emailed to every resident, and read aloud at the next general meeting, acknowledging years of unauthorized fines, trespass, and overreach. Board resignation of those involved. Karen, Harold, Evelyn, and the 2 others who'd signed off on the demolition permits. Immediate effect, no lame duck lingering. A permanent restriction on HOA authority near the Marina. Recorded amendment to the covenants. No future claims, easements, or enforcement attempts beyond the high tide line. Ironclad, lawyer drafted, county filed. The room erupted. Cheers from boat owners, groans from others who'd benefited from the old perks. Karen slammed her palm on the podium. This is extortion. We're a community. Donnelly stepped in, voice low but urgent. Mr. Thorne, this is aggressive. Florida law favors mediation in HOA disputes. Under Section 720, 311, most claims require pre-suit mediation. We can sit down, negotiate. Mediation, I cut in. You've had 5 years of quiet warnings you ignored. Trespass, property damage, fraudulent fines, Section 720. 305 allows remedies at law, including damages and injunctions. Board members can face personal liability for willful misconduct. Your insurance is already on notice. Karen's face flushed. We won't be bullied, the community won't stand for. A resident stood, middle-aged, golf shirt, one of the few who'd quietly paid HOA fines without complaint. Karen, you lost us the docks. My boat's in dry storage because the transient slips are gone. Fix this or step down. More voices joined. Resign. Pay for the damages. Phones lit up, recordings, live streams to the local Facebook group. Karen looked to Donnelly for rescue. He shook his head slightly. We should adjourn and discuss privately. I shook my head. No more private deals. You refused reasonable terms, so I filed suit. I pulled out my phone, showing the timestamp confirmation. Civil complaint filed at 7:45 p.m. via the county e-portal. Trespass FLA. Stat. Section 810-08. Conversion of property, negligence, breach of implied covenant of good faith, stretched but viable, punitive damages sought. Named defendants. The HOA as entity, plus Karen, Harold, and Evelyn personally for ultra-vires acts. 7 figures claimed. Actuals plus punitives for the willful pattern. The room went dead silent, then exploded again. Donnelly rubbed his temples. This will drag on, attorney fees alone. Billable to the HOA, I said. And if the court finds bad faith, personal liability kicks in. Precedents are clear. Boards that overreach on non-common elements like private marinas get hit hard. Karen stammered, this is our home. It's my marina, I replied. And you've cost residents thousands in bogus fines, now more in legal fees. Think about that before refusing again. I turned to leave. Manny clapped slowly. Others joined. By the time I reached the door, half the room was on their feet. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Resignations demanded. Side conversations about recalling the board under Section 720. 303 procedures. Donnelly packed his briefcase fast. Outside, under the parking lot lights, Tom caught up. You really filed. Done deal. Elena's handling service tomorrow. He grinned, epic. I walked to my truck, the night air cool off the water. The suit wasn't just about money. It was the final nail in the coffin of an HOA that thought it owned the tide. Sunrise Harbor would never be the same, and that was exactly the point. January 2026 turned into a courtroom storm that no one in Sunrise Bay saw coming, least of all Karen Whitaker and her board. The suit I'd filed that night of the emergency meeting moved fast. Florida courts don't dawdle on clear-cut trespass and property damage claims, especially when the evidence is ironclad. Timestamp videos, sheriff's reports, county deeds showing 0 easements, Army Corps permits in my name, and a paper trail of bogus fines stretching back years. We didn't drag it out for years. Discovery wrapped in weeks. Elena Vasquez subpoenaed every HOA email, meeting minute, and financial record related to the marina. The HOA's own documents buried them. Internal memos admitting the easement was a stretch, forged permit stamps, county clerk confirmed no record, and board votes to proceed despite warnings from their own attorney about potential exposure. By March, summary judgment motions flew. The judge, a no-nonsense veteran of property disputes, granted partial summary judgment on liability after reviewing the undisputed facts. The HOA was found liable for property destruction, the demolished ramp and shed, $27,450 in repairs plus lost revenue during downtime, clear conversion and negligence under common law and FLA. Stat. Section 810(02), theft damage to property. Trespassing, repeated unauthorized entry onto private upland property beyond the high tide line. Florida law is crystal. HOAs have no inherent right to enter non-common elements without express easement or emergency. Their community oversight claim evaporated when deeds proved the marina separate since 1998. Deputies' trespass warnings and impoundment photos sealed it. Fraudulent enforcement, issuing fines and violation notices for unauthorized docking on slips they never controlled. Selective enforcement, board favorites got passes while Manny and Tom racked up thousands, violated fiduciary duties under FLA. Stat. Section 720(303). The bogus Coast Guard letter, evidence of bad faith harassment. Abuse of authority, willful overreach by board members acting ultra vires, outside their governing documents. Florida's business judgment rule shields good faith decisions, but not willful misconduct, self-dealing, or gross negligence. Here, the pattern crossed into personal liability territory for Karen, Harold, and Evelyn. The case didn't last long. Settlement talks collapsed when the HOA lowballed. We went to bench trial in April. The judge ruled swiftly. HOA entity liable for compensatory damages, $85,000 total, repairs, lost slip income, refunded fines with interest, attorney fees under FLA. Stat. Section 720(305). Punitive damages hit $150,000, multiplier for the willful pattern, especially the demolition after cease and desist. Their insurance covered some. General liability and D&O policies kicked in for the entity portion, though the carrier fought tooth and nail over intentional acts exclusions. They paid about $120,000 before capping out. The rest, special assessments. The board had no choice. With reserves drained from years of legal posturing, they levied a one-time special assessment, $4,200 per household, payable in installments. Every homeowner who'd voted those board members in, or stayed silent while the overreach escalated, now footed the bill. Resentment boiled over in community chats. "Why are we paying for Karen's ego trip?" became the rallying cry. Several board members resigned before the ink dried on the judgment. Harold cited health reasons in a terse email. Evelyn followed, tears in her Zoom goodbye. Karen held out longest, until the judge's order for personal contribution on the punitive slice landed. She resigned May 1, effective immediately. One consequence stung deepest. Karen lost her real estate license. As a retired agent still holding inactive status and moonlighting as a consultant for local listings, the Florida DBPR launched an investigation after the judgment highlighted fraud and fiduciary breach. Misconduct involving property rights and deceptive practices. Grounds for revocation under CH 475. The board's forged permits and bad faith enforcement crossed ethical lines. Her license was suspended pending hearing, then revoked. Career capstone turned scarlet letter. By summer, the HOA was gutted. New board, mostly moderates and a few boat owners, slashed rules, refunded remaining bogus fines, and negotiated a limited access agreement with me, paid priority slips, no discounts, ironclad boundaries. Property values stabilized after the initial dip. Buyers now saw no-nonsense marina owner as a feature, not a bug. From my office balcony, I watched boats glide in at standard rates, fishermen like Manny back without fear. The lawsuit hadn't just won money, it sank the myth that any HOA could rule the water. Sunrise Harbor finally learned, overreach has a price, and sometimes the tide collects it all. The courtroom in the Broward County Courthouse smelled of old wood polish and fresh coffee, ordinary scents that belied the extraordinary reckoning unfolding inside Courtroom 7B. January bled into February 2026, and what began as a single filing on that chaotic HOA meeting night snowballed into a legal tidal wave no one in Sunrise Bay could outrun. Elena Vasquez moved like a predator in silk. Within days of filing, she served discovery requests so broad they made the HOA's paralegal blanch. Every email chain mentioning Marina, docks, fishermen, or jet skis since 2018, scanned copies of all violation notices issued to non-board-favored residents, bank statements showing where fine revenue went spoiler, mostly to administrative costs and Karen's favored landscaping contractor. Subpoenas flew to the county clerk for permit records, to the Army Corps for dock approvals, to the sheriff's office for bodycam footage from the impoundment day. The HOA's production was a treasure trove for us. Buried in the attachments, an email from Donnelly dated December 2025 warning, the claimed easement is tenuous at best, proceeding risks significant exposure. Karen's reply, we proceed, community standards come first. Another gem, a scanned permit with a county stamp that the clerk swore under oath had never been issued. Forgery, plain and simple. Board minutes showed Harold seconding the demolition motion, despite knowing the marina was privately owned. Selective enforcement logs, never meant to see daylight, listed dozens of fines waived for board allies, while Manny Rodriguez accumulated $8,400 in bogus charges over 3 years. By early March, Elena filed for partial summary judgment. The judge, Honorable Maria Delgado, a silver-haired veteran who'd seen every flavor of waterfront dispute from Biscayne Bay to the Keys, reviewed the motion over a weekend. Undisputed facts stared back. No easement in the recorded plats, deeds crystal clear since 1998, video of the demolition crew cutting on my land, sheriff's trespass citations, Army Corps permits renewed in my name every year since the auction. On March 18, the judge granted partial summary judgment on liability. The HOA as an entity was liable for property destruction, $27,450 direct repairs, plus $18,200 in lost slip revenue during the 3-week closure for fixes. Conversion and negligence under Florida common law, criminal mischief elements under Section 810.02 supported the civil claim. Trespassing repeated, knowing entry onto upland private property. Florida's navigable waters doctrine protects the water itself, but dry land above mean high water. That's fee simple ownership. No emergency, no easement, no permission. Deputies' photos of impounded equipment on my apron became Exhibit A. Fraudulent enforcement, bogus violation notices and fines for conduct outside HOA jurisdiction. Selective enforcement violated fiduciary duties under Section 720, 303.1. Boards must act in good faith and treat members equally. The Coast Guard letter, the retroactive noise fines, the visual clutter citations, all bad faith harassment. Abuse of authority ultra vires acts, board members acted beyond their governing documents. Florida's business judgment rule protects honest mistakes, not willful overreach or gross negligence. The pattern, especially demolition post-cease and desist, crossed into personal liability for Karen, Harold, and Evelyn under Section 720, 303.5. Settlement talks died fast. The HOA offered $35,000 and a vague access restoration promise. Elena laughed politely on the call. We demanded full damages plus punitives. They refused. Bench trial set for April 22. The one-day trial was surgical. Elena called 5 witnesses, me owner testimony, the county clerk no permit existed, a deputy trespass confirmed, many years of selective fines and an appraiser lost revenue calculation. The HOA's defense, good faith belief in community authority. The judge wasn't buying. Closing arguments ended at 3:45 p.m., ruling from the bench at 4:12. HOA entity liable for $85,000 compensatory repairs, lost income, refunded fines with 8% statutory interest, fees under Section 720, 305. Punitive damages, $150,000, multiplier justified by the willful, repeated misconduct and post-notice demolition. Total judgment, $235,000 plus post-judgment interest. Insurance paid $120,000 before invoking intentional acts exclusions and capping out. D&O coverage covered board members partially, but only up to policy limits, leaving gaps. The HOA had no deep pockets. Reserves sat at $42,000 after years of enhancements. Red, Karen's preferred vendors. They levied the inevitable, a one-time special assessment of $4,200 per household, payable over 6 months. 320 homes meant roughly $1.34 million collected, enough to cover the judgment, legal fees, and a cushion for future claims. Community backlash was swift and brutal. Next-door threads exploded. Why are we paying for the board's stupidity? Karen's ego cost me $4,000. Facebook groups formed. Sunrise Bay victims of HOA overreach, with screenshots of old violation notices. Petitions circulated to recall the entire board under Section 720, 303 procedures. Resignations came in waves. Harold emailed April 25. Due to health concerns, I resign effective immediately. Evelyn followed April 28, sobbing on a recorded Zoom farewell. I never meant for this. Karen clung until May 1, when the judge's order denying her motion to shield personal assets landed. She resigned that afternoon, no statement. The deepest cut, Karen's real estate license. Still holding inactive status and quietly consulting on local sales, she faced a DBPR complaint filed by a resident whose boat fine she'd personally approved. The department investigated. Fiduciary breach, deceptive practices, involvement in forged documents. Ch. 475.25 lists grounds for discipline, fraud, misrepresentation, breach of trust. After a formal hearing in June, the commission revoked her license permanently. Her LinkedIn bio vanished overnight. Old clients quietly distanced themselves. By July, the new board, elected in a landslide of boat owners and fed-up retirees, gutted the old regime. Covenants amended to explicitly exclude Marina property from HOA authority, remaining bogus fines refunded with interest. A modest access agreement negotiated with me. Priority booking on 10 slips at standard rates, no fuel discounts, clear boundaries recorded with the county. No more community oversight of navigable waters. Property values dipped 7% in spring from the drama, then rebounded by fall. Buyers now asked realtors, is the Marina owner still that guy who took on the HOA? The answer, yes, and he won, became a selling point. Quiet strength over loud bullying. From my office balcony that August evening, I watched the sunset paint the harbor gold. Boats tied up at posted rates, Manny casting from his favorite spot without a clipboard in sight, Tom C. Ray gleaming after a fresh polish. Laughter carried across the water, real, unscripted. The lawsuit hadn't just won a judgment. It dismantled an empire built on bluff and entitlement. It proved that water doesn't recognize sidewalk kings. And when the tide finally turns, it takes everything with it.